Good morning. My name is Chris Konetsky, and I'm the group publisher of Business Publications Corporation. Welcome to our Commercial Real Estate Trends and Issues Forum, which is being brought to you today by our supporting sponsors, Henning Companies, the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, Mid-American Energy, Polk County Housing Trust, and Whitfield and Eddy. Can we get a round of applause for all of our sponsors today for being here this morning? All right, today with the help of our 6 expert speakers and senior staff writer, Kathy Bolton, we're going to dive into an array of industry-related issues, including the economic climate, the office market, the health of downtown, and I'm sure we're going to touch on some changes in the lending market as well. Our goal, as always, is to provide you with a solid outlook for the greater Des Moines area in the coming year. And along the way, we're going to get a look at some current projects that are indicative of some of the changing issues and trends affecting the real estate industry. Woven between our panelists, you're also going to hear from today's aforementioned sponsors, and we're also going to recognize our 2023 Iowa State University Ivy College of Business Commercial Real Estate Pro of the Year. We only have a short time here today that we're going to be able to scratch the surface of some of the topics that we end up talking about on the panel. Luckily, the 9th edition of our annual real estate magazine is just one of the many ways we're able to touch on many topics across the industry. Not only is the piece visually beautiful, it's also a resource packed with fantastic content that's going to help you dive deeper into some of the topics we talk about. A big thank you goes to Kathy Bolton, who you're going to be hearing more today about. And for all her work on the publication, along with Emily Barsky, our editor, for all her work and leadership editing the piece, and of course to the entire Business Record newsroom that contributed to the piece, our design team, our copy editors, photographers, and everybody that helped put it together. And of course, the magazine wouldn't be possible without the support of our chapter sponsors. So a big thank you today to the City of Urbandale, R&R Realty, Two Rivers Bank, JLL, and SVN, and all the countless other companies that help support that magazine that allows us to be able to go deep into the topics you want to learn about. Can we get a big round of applause for the annual Real Estate magazine? Really excited for you to get a chance to take a look at that publication. We're going to have it for you as you walk out the door today, so make sure you grab that. You can also find it at businessrecord.com, our brand new website, at businessrecord.com/AREM. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you the president of BPC, Susanna DeBacca. She's going to introduce our sponsor of the Commercial Real Estate Pro of the Year Award. Please welcome Susanna.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to see so many of you wide awake at 7 a.m. On a lovely spring morning with a little bit of a rainstorm on the way. So thank you for being here. It is my pleasure on behalf of the Business Record to introduce Dean David Spalding, who is the Reisbach Endowed Dean at the Iowa State University Ivy College of Business. And he is going to introduce the 2023 Iowa State Ivy College of Business Commercial Real Estate Pro of the Year. But I do want to tell you a little bit about him. I've had the privilege of knowing Dean Spalding for some time now, and I have to tell you, I am absolutely in awe of where he has taken the Ivy College of Business. Are there any cyclones in the room? Okay, good. Excellent. So you may not know that before becoming the dean and before entering higher education, Dean Spalding had a 29-year career in finance in New York City. And that real-world experience has really informed his work at the Ivy College of Business. Under his leadership, total enrollment at the College of Business grew 33.6% from the fall of 2012 to the fall of 22. I mean, that is an enormous increase in enrollment at a time that we know enrollment is stretched. During his time as the dean, the college has added 5 undergraduate majors and 5 new master's programs, including finance, business analytics, entrepreneurship, healthcare analytics and operations, and of course, as you in this room know, real estate development. He also serves as the interim vice president for economic development and industry relations for Iowa State University, so does so much for our state. Dean Spalding, we thank you for everything you do, for your support of this program, and we welcome you here today.
Well, thank you, Susanna. It's really an honor to be starting the day with this group, having a chance to hear more about developments in real estate here in Des Moines and Central Iowa, and have a chance to visit with all of you. You know, we jumped when we were offered the opportunity to sponsor this award because we are very committed to furthering the education level, furthering the real estate industry here in the state of Iowa through a variety of programs that we have at Iowa State University. We worked with our College of Design. Susanna mentioned our Master Real Estate Development program, and that's actually a collaboration between the Ivy College of Business and the College of Design at Iowa State, one of the top programs in the world in design, to create a program that gives our students the opportunity to deepen their financial knowledge while also deepening their understanding of design elements, construction elements in the field. This program prepares working professionals for career success in the real estate industry, and I'm sitting with some of our graduates and our current students at my table today, and it's really great to hear about how much those graduates have benefited from being a part of our program. Also offers networking opportunities, collaboration opportunities with leading academics and practitioners around real-world challenges, and is offered in a convenient format of essentially an online program with a few opportunities to come together on our campus up in Ames. This is truly a program that's ideal for the working professional who wants to move themselves to the next level in their career. Now, this is just one example of the programs we offer for working professionals, and we really are committed to helping working professionals advance their careers. Our Master of Business Analytics is a program offered fully online. We have a Master of Healthcare Analytics and Operations, also a program fully online. And then we just got approval from our board to launch this fall a fully online part-time MBA program. Our part-time MBA program in Des Moines, which is a hybrid program, has been voted the best in Des Moines 5 years in a row by the readers of the Business Record, and we're now really taking that program fully online to make it more convenient for all. All of these programs have rolling admissions, and critically for working professionals, we don't require the GMAT, the GRE, or any other standardized test to be a part of the program. We are in the process of accepting applications today for the fall, so check us out on the web, take a look at these programs, and join us in your next stage of your learning adventure. So today I'm really excited to introduce Chris Sidoris, an Ivy graduate who has been selected as the Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year. Chris actually has 2 degrees from Ivy, an undergraduate degree in management and an MBA degree as well. Over the past 38 years, Chris has seen many different facets of the commercial real estate industry, both in central Iowa and across the state. She started her career in 1985 with Conlin Properties. While there, she held a variety of positions from property manager to marketing director, commercial director, to vice president of operations. In 2011, she became president of the company, including leading the company's affordable housing initiative across the state. In 2015, she transitioned to Hubble Realty, joining the organization as vice president of multifamily development. In this capacity, she oversaw a $100 million pipeline of developments, including affordable rentals, market rate apartments, single-family rentals, 55-plus condominiums, and urban downtown neighborhoods. In 2022, she was promoted to Vice President of Development, where she oversees industrial and retail in Iowa and Omaha, in addition to her previous duties. Christine Hensley wrote of Chris, quote, "I've seen firsthand Chris's work ethic, integrity, and determination in finding a path forward for the completion of housing and development projects. Many of the housing projects were not always popular, but because Chris had the ability to listen, address concerns head-on, and make changes, she was successful in getting the projects across the finish line, end quote. In addition to her work with Hubble, Chris serves as the chair of the Greater Des Moines Partnership's Economic Development Committee and is the board president of Home Inc., among numerous other affiliations. The Iowa State University, Ivy College of Business, in conjunction with the Business Record, is proud to recognize Chris Sidoris as the 2023 Commercial Real Estate Professional of the Year.
Good morning. Wow, that makes me sound old, doesn't it? I'm super humbled and obviously grateful for this award that has a super rich history for Central Iowa in real estate. Thanks to the Business Record, who got their own award. Like, I was gonna tell you how great they are, but editor and publisher beat me to it. Two-time award, which none of us are gonna get. As the 10 news publishers doing it right, truly unprecedented. So a round of applause for that. We know in today's industry of news, that doing it right, amen. And thanks to the Ivy College of Business, obviously Iowa State, that's super exciting for me, obviously near and dear to my heart. And to the CRE Iowa folks, CRE Iowa people, raise your hand. Yeah, this amazing group of 180 folks strong were the nominator for me, which makes me super excited because it's a group of folks doing work in Central Iowa and in 75 markets globally. Basically knowledge sharing, a good emphasis on mentoring, connection, pushing boundaries, educational, and a force for activism and involvement in the communities. Those are my people. So thank you to them. Thank you to my parents and my spouse, who is a CPA and literally 7 hours removed from tax season. So that is a true love of 38 years of marriage, that he's up at 7 a.m. for breakfast. And I have 2 children, one of which belongs in Fort Lauderdale and is here today. He's an attorney who flew in and surprised me. I'm gonna try and not look at him because I got my makeup done and I can't do this. So thank you to Jordan and Kaylee, you are here. My daughter, Kelsey, is a physician, hopefully in a hospital in Cincinnati. I have not seen her walk in, so. But thank you to them. So I'm fortunate, obviously, to work with many partners in the work that we do. We know in Central Iowa, it's always all of us. So thank you to the Hubble team that is back there, and especially that group of gentlemen that are at the development table. They make this work very easy every single day, and they work shoulder to shoulder with me. But we know our secret sauce, as Jay Byers calls it in Central Iowa, is how things really happen here. So it's all of you that I have had the chance over the years to work in some capacity. We make this work every single day. It's not easy, it's hard. And for those of you that have tolerated my sassiness, or Rick Tollickson actually has a different word that I won't use in a public forum, but thank you for listening, because I am super passionate about the work that I do. And I continue to be passionate about market rate and affordable housing, and hopefully Eric's gonna give a little plug for a panel tomorrow. I'm sure he will. So I was especially pleased to be nominated by the CRE folks. I used to say ladies, but we don't check cards at the door anymore, so we have men as well. But our motto there is lift as you rise, reach, each one, teach one. And so we know there is so many future leaders here. We've all had our own mentors, mentees, folks that have invited us to the table. So as you exit today, I'm gonna ask you to reach out to those folks. We know they're here. Our future is super bright in Central Iowa, and as we invite them to the table, it's gonna be even better. So thank you again to the Business Record, Ivy College of Business, and my CRE Iowa folks. I'm very humbled and very grateful for this. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Chris, and for all you've done for the community and all the initiatives you've helped push and projects. Your work is going to be, of course, scattered across the landscape of the Greater Des Moines area, and we'll be seeing that for years to come. If you want to learn a little bit more about Chris, Kathy's got a great profile on her that is going to be in the May 5th edition of the Business Record, and you can find that online as well. All right, on to our program. The format for today's event is similar to last year, so once again, rather than having a straightforward panel discussion, Kathy has crafted some targeted questions for each of the speakers to respond to one at a time. Each speaker is bringing varying backgrounds and perspectives from across the commercial real estate landscape, and our goal with the event today is really to give you depth with breadth. There's no way we can hit on every topic and go deep on every issue, so our hope today is that you're going to leave with a number of key insights that we're going to continue, of course, to explore in our products and events throughout the rest of the year at our Project 515 series, the magazine, and of course, Commercial Real Estate Weekly, which hopefully all of you receive each Wednesday morning. So here's what you can expect. We're going to start with one question for the whole group just to get things rolling. Then we're going to hear from a sponsor, then we'll begin hearing from each speaker one at a time with our other supporting sponsors woven in between each speaker. And then if we've got some time at the end, which we should, we'll have a little discussion and opportunity for Kathy to ask some of those hard-hitting follow-up questions that I'm sure our panelists are all ready for. All right, here we go. With us today is Matt Anderson. He's the Deputy City Manager for the City of Des Moines. We can give a round of applause. We can do this. Here we go. Let's make sure they're nice and warm. Molly Cutler, Manager of Cutler Development. Adam Caduce, President R&R Real Estate Advisors. Corey Larson, Senior Vice President and owner of Keen Project Solutions. Michael Wagler, Main Street, Iowa State Coordinator at the Iowa Economic Development Authority. And Holly Zychek, Economic Developer for the City of Norwalk. And of course, right in the middle of our panel today will once again be Kathy Bolton. She's our senior staff writer who covers commercial real estate and is the one who curated today's panel and the questions. Kathy, I'm going to turn over to you to start our program.
Thanks, Chris, and good morning. I'm so glad all of you were able to get here this morning. I woke up at 5 and the hail was pounding on my windows and I was hoping, better not be doing that at 7 o'clock, and thankfully it wasn't. So let's get started. The pandemic upended our lives in lots of ways. It changed how we shopped, it changed how and where we worked, changed how we played, and all of that has affected the commercial real estate sector. So I'd like the panelists to tell us in one word or a short phrase how you would describe the state of commercial real estate sector today and why, and we'll start with Matt.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I assume that Kathy and Chris asked me to go first because you wanted a spark of optimism in like this first statement.
Or your last name starts with A.
Yeah. My one word for the Des Moines market is envied. We are the envy of a lot of our peer cities. You may not know it from reading the headlines, but a lot of the challenges that we're going to talk about up here today are the result of our prosperity and growth, not necessarily because of our stagnation or backpedaling in our market. Unlike a lot of our other cities, we're dealing in a crosswind where everyone else is into a very strong headwind. So we have a lot to look forward to here.
Thank you. Molly.
I think my word would be sustainability. I think a lot of industries came out of the pandemic with an increased focus on sustainability, and really the commercial sector is no different. We're seeing announcements on some big projects, both here and across the nation, that are using more sustainable materials instead of traditional steel and concrete, even if that's coming at an increased cost. An example is the Walmart campus down in Arkansas. They're planning to build that out of mass timber, their corporate campus. And we're seeing the government incentivizing all-electric building systems and appliances. We're seeing them incentivizing solar panel and geothermal for both the commercial and the single-family sectors. And then we're seeing right here in Des Moines, tenants from the retail and the multifamily sides starting to ask about, and in some cases even being willing to pay more for more environmentally progressive spaces. So I think people are really starting to take a look and reevaluate the environments that they're living and working and playing in, and starting to ask more from those spaces. We think that will start to shift the commercial sector towards more and more sustainable choices.
Great, thank you. Adam.
Thanks, thanks, Kathy, and congratulations to Chris Sidoris. Very, very well-deserved recognition. I can't see Chris back there, but I know there she is. Congratulations, Chris. My word is relevant. 2.5 years ago, a lot of people were debating whether we'd ever be in an office again. And today, as you drive around the metro, you'll find that our largest and leading employers have full parking lots. And that's because they've made the choice to bring their people back, put them around a table, because they've decided that office space is relevant. It's not only relevant, but it's vitally important to the success of their businesses.
Thanks. And Corey?
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to be optimistic, and I truly believe we're all kind of blessed to be in the Des Moines metro area. But I think it's also a calculation. And I'm so hopeful that interest rates provide some relief and that we got a downward progression in terms of that.
Great.
Excellent. Mine is a world of leverage right now. And from our perspective and my team's work, supporting downtown revitalization in many rural communities and small places across the state, what we're seeing is that the downtown revitalization and real estate development ecosystem is really being stressed. And it's being stressed in a good way. A lot of that stress is coming from new interests, new ideas that are resulting in the purchase of many downtown buildings that have sat long vacant or highly underutilized for many years. And so we have this new breath of life. But the other side is for good or for bad, there are a lot of funding sources that have been out there over the last couple years that haven't existed in the past and may not exist into the future. But those funding sources are really driving partnerships that should have been there in local communities for years, for decades. But these funding sources, these ideas are really driving local partnerships that are reconfirming what many of us in this room know, that in order for projects to happen, especially at a small scale, you have to learn to leverage community resources, financial resources, partnerships with the city and with financial institutions. And so that world of leverage is happening in Iowa across the state, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Great, thanks. And Holly?
I would say my word would be defiant. I think that Iowans are very resilient and a little bit tougher than a lot of other areas in the country. So I think after COVID, our people, our developers, our commercial realtors, our business owners, they said, you know what, we live and work and invest and risk in a free market and a free country. And we're going to get right back up and we're going to start over again. And I think that we've kind of shown the nation that that's how you do it after these kind of artificial, economic issues that come up and try to hold us back. So I would say that Iowa has been able to weather the storms better than some of the other states in the nation, and will continue to do so.
Great, thanks.
Well, you got a nice sampling there of some of the topics that we're going to continue diving deeper into here in a few moments. Now we're going to take a moment to recognize a couple of our sponsors today. Our first sponsor that we're going to recognize is longtime commercial real estate sponsor, Henning Companies. We're grateful for their continued support of this event. Founded in 1924, Henning Companies provides a wide range of construction services from general contracting and construction management to design build for clients in a variety of industries. They've continued to expand into the commercial industry and the retail, office, warehouse, and manufacturing facility space. Can we get a big round of applause for Henning? Next, I'd like to introduce our next sponsor, the Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. The Des Moines MPO is a regional transportation planning entity that invests in the infrastructure, prioritizing the maintenance and optimization of the transportation networks that works for all people. Joining us today from the MPO to tell us a little bit more is Bob Andewig. In addition to his title as Mayor of Urbandale, Bob is the chairman of the Des Moines Area MPO. Please welcome Bob.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning. I want to thank the Business Record for hosting this event, and thank you for the panelists for providing your wisdom this morning. It's always a great event. I've spoken at this event in the past about my role as Mayor of Urbandale and told you how great Urbandale is. Well, today I get to address you in my role as the chair of the MPO and tell you about what we've been doing at the Des Moines Metropolitan Planning Organization. I like to think of the MPO as an investor in the future of Greater Des Moines. The numbers speak volumes, which is why I want to share a few of them today. Over the past 5 years, the MPO has captured $115 million for investment in our region. The MPO has committed more than $71 million for improving the regional transportation network. These investments are helping to maintain and optimize our streets, our highways, and our bridges. And we want to make sure our investments serve all citizens with funding for transit, freight, complete streets, bike and pedestrian facilities, and safe routes to school. The MPO plays another important role, which is launching projects with regional significance. The Icon Water Trails project was born out of the planning effort that the MPO started back in 2015. The MPO drew the roadmap for activating 150 miles of rivers and creeks. The MPO then accelerated the implementation by securing a $25 million build grant. And now work is underway to mitigate the Lowhead Dam at Scott Avenue, just below the confluence of the Des Moines and Raccoon Rivers, a critical first step for activating the center of that water trails network. The MPO used the same approach of planning and then investing to launch the Des Moines transload facility. It's been nearly a decade since the MPO completed a feasibility study for this, showing how the state's trucking routes would be connected to the national rail networks that span coast to coast. Then we delivered the funding, an $11.2 million build grant, and a $1.2 million interest-free loan through the Iowa DOT. So today, that vision is a reality, thanks to our partners at Des Moines Industrial. After 1 year in operation, it's already having a tremendous impact on our regional economy, and its impact will only grow as more businesses shift to rail. So again, thank you for being here today. That I've reached the end of my remarks, but we're not done as an MPO. We will keep planning and investing to ensure an even better future for the greater Des Moines region. Thank you.
All right, Kathy, back to you to start our individual questions.
Okay, and Matt, we're going to start with you again.
Okay.
Des Moines has a lot of projects on its plate. One of them is the 33-story tower that's planned at 5th and Walnut. It's expected to have 390 apartments, and about 80 of those are going to be workforce housing. The city's done a lot to provide workforce housing or get workforce housing citywide, but you're looking at downtown. Why is it important to have workforce housing in the downtown area?
Sure. So I've been doing economic development in the city for about 20 years, and we've always functioned with a kind of an unwritten goal of having a downtown workforce that mimics the downtown housing options. So we want to try to provide housing options for the CEO, the middle manager, the young kid out of school getting their first job, and the service sector industry workers that are downtown as well. The market's generally done a pretty good job of meeting those demands, but those of you in the real estate industry, you're always naturally going to gravitate to the highest reward, less risky projects. That generally steers some of you away from affordable and workforce development. So it takes a little extra oomph to get those done. That's where we come in with some of our policies, requirements for certain levels of workforce and affordable housing, as well as adding extra incentives to a project to fill that gap that you might have so that we can try to lower that risk a bit. There was a housing study done in Polk County, and Eric Burmeister will be able to correct all these statistics that I get wrong here. 5 years ago that said we needed 57,000 new housing units in Polk County. About 23,000 affordable, or 23,000 rental, and 18,000 of those at a rent level of $1,250. That's a lot of units, 57,000 units. So there's really, to be able to do 80 affordable units in one project may not sound like a lot. Normally, that would take us 6, 7, 8 projects to get that level. So the importance of those 80 units is just, we get them all in one project. It's more than we could do over the course of many years doing multiple projects.
And while we're talking about housing, is there a point where you get to have too much housing in the downtown?
No, I don't think so. I do get asked that question a lot, and you would never ask Waukee or Ankeny if they can have too much housing, and I don't know why there's some perceived cap downtown. I think we're just limited by what the market wants. So part of our job at the city is to make downtown an inviting place so that those 57,000 new households that are looking for housing in the next 20 years at least give downtown a look, and that we've got the stock there for them.
And a little bit of a curveball here. The housing, what does that, you have the housing, what things does the housing attract now?
Yes, and that's a really important answer to one of my next questions, but really it's the diversity of our downtown. We're no longer just beholden to the 80,000 downtown office workers. We have such diversity in our downtown now, housing being a big piece of it, that we don't feel that sting that we would have felt during the pandemic if we had just been solely counting on housing for our success, or on office for our success.
Kathy, one quick question on that study that was looking at the needs. Was that done pre-interest rates starting to go high?
Yes.
So I would imagine, are you thinking about that with additional pressure in that space then going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So while we're still talking about downtown, sort of talk about the economic health of downtown and tie that in with the large amount of vacant office space there is.
Yeah, so if we had this amount of vacant office space downtown 15 years ago, I'd be very concerned. We didn't have that diversity, hospitality, the number of hotels that we've added, the number of housing units, restaurant, entertainment choices. We've transitioned over the last 15, 20 years from being an 8 to 5 downtown to being probably an 18-hour downtown. So that diversity has greatly helped us. The partnership's latest foot traffic had us at, I think, 83% of pre-pandemic levels over the course of a week. So that's pretty tremendous. That 83%, and that's where I talked about us being in an enviable position. Most cities would die to get that 83% foot traffic. When one of my biggest problems is trying to finance a $100 million soccer stadium, that's a pretty good problem to have. So if 3 years from now we're still having this discussion on all this vacant office space, I'll come back to this panel and probably use a different word than enviable, because we won't be anymore. But this vacant office, Chris Sidora still has a few more hours left in her career. She's going to present a rehab opportunity for one of those Wells Fargo buildings, probably by the end of the week, and we'll have part of that problem solved.
Thanks, Matt. Molly, Cutler Development is just getting started on the Star Lofts on Ingersoll. It's going to have 20 apartment units and street-level commercial, and the project's going to be built using mass timber, which is, I believe, Cutler's second mass timber project in the Des Moines area. Share sort of what has attracted the company to the use of mass timber and some of its benefits to the environment.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. We're thrilled to bring the Star Lofts project to fruition. It's truly taken a village to get there. Our partner on the deal is Anwim Housing, and both Michael and Matt have talked about already on this panel some of the funding opportunities that are available. We're very thankful to both IEDA and the City of Des Moines for their funding, as well as Polk County Housing Trust Fund, one of the sponsors of today's panel. We're very thankful to them and all the people and groups who have made this project happen. The 20 apartment units you mentioned are all designated workforce housing and have specific set-asides at 30, 40, 60, and 80% area median income. And the last thing I'll say before going into mass timber, we're excited all the residents of the building will receive all-access DART bus passes so that they can really take advantage of all the stops along and all the routes along the Ingersoll Avenue. So how do we decide on mass timber to use again on this project? Well, previously I talked about sustainability kind of emerging, coming out of the pandemic and in the commercial sector. During the pandemic, Scott and I were thinking about Cutler Development's own environmental footprint. We had the lot under contract for the Star Lofts project. It was a distressed gas station along Ingersoll. And that's when we started thinking to ourselves, well, what if we took this blighted gas station and tried to transform it into the state of Iowa's first zero carbon certified building? As you mentioned, we'd learned a lot from the mass timber that we used on the Valley Junction project at 304 5th Street. We knew its environmental benefits would go a really long way to helping us achieve net zero embodied carbon for the Star Lofts project. So what are those environmental benefits? Well, first and foremost, you're seeing some pictures from the Valley Junction project on the screen there, and all of the exposed columns, beams, and decking, we like to joke that those are basically the oldest and simplest carbon capture and sequestration out there, right? All of these beams and columns were once trees. They absorbed carbon dioxide in order to grow, and now that carbon dioxide will be stored in this building forever. Speaking of forever, that's the second benefit of mass timber. It's an extremely durable construction type, and so this will allow the buildings to be used and reused several times over, and when ordinarily they'd have to be demolished and rebuilt. And lastly, the mass timber can be made from small diameter kind of new growth trees instead of going through and cutting down the big, beautiful old growth trees in forests. Further, it's those small trees that are the tinder for forest fires that are spreading across the country. And so if we're able to go through and cull those small trees and have an end-use market for them, we can leave behind the older growth trees and improve forest health over time. In addition to the environmental benefits, studies have shown the mental and emotional benefits of living and working in spaces where you're surrounded by natural materials. And plus, Scott and I just really love the aesthetic that the mass timber brings to both the residential and the commercial units. So our Star Lofts groundbreaking is set for May 4th. We hope to see you guys there on Ingersoll. And really excited to bring this second mass timber building in our portfolio. I should mention there already is a mass timber building in the East Village that I know Tim Ritma, Jake Christensen, and Ryan companies were all involved with.
So I'm going to throw you a curveball too. So what was the one thing when you started using mass timber that kind of surprised you?
Sure, I think that's a great question. One of the things we discovered, it was a nice bonus during construction, is actually that the mass timber requires fewer labor hours. It all comes prefabbed off-site. You send in, your designs, and the shops come back, and it all comes in on either freight or truck. And for instance, the decking, we've got about 4,000, a little over 4,000 square feet per floor on the Valley Junction project. The Star Lofts project will be larger, but 4,000 square feet per floor in Valley Junction. The decking on each floor went up in a half a day. And there's no waste from the material because it's all prefabbed and goes together, kind of like Lincoln logs.
So explain briefly why it's important for developers to start considering the impacts of the environment when planning a project.
It's a great question, and I think I would maybe approach that question by referencing two of the current challenges facing our city and cities across the country that developers have to kind of wrestle with when they're planning a project, and that is the lack of affordable housing and the kind of the negative impact that more traditional construction methods have on the environment. So both these things, as I said, are happening globally, but they're also happening in our backyard. And so Scott and I believe that as developers, we have a real duty and responsibility to figure out how to kind of find a solution to both instead of fixing one and exacerbating another. Polk County Housing Trust Fund's been busy. Matt mentioned the study that they produced a couple of years ago. They just came out with a study earlier this month, Affordable and Available Rental Homes. It says that there's currently, today, a deficit of more than 16,000 homes or rental homes for households making at or less than 50% of area median income. And that's not even counting all the rental units we're going to need to bring to the market over the next few decades, given all the population and job growth expected. So that's one kind of problem we've got going on. And the other problem is the climate change, right? And so to put that in context for Iowa, every year the Iowa Department of Natural Resources releases their annual greenhouse gas inventory report. And the latest report showed that residential, commercial, and industrial construction accounted for about 27% of the state of Iowa's emissions in that year. 2/3 of those greenhouse gases were carbon dioxide. And so, on the one hand, we've got this incredible need for housing in our city. On the other hand, if we're not really deliberate and sustainable with how we fill that need, we could end up solving one problem but exacerbating another.
Great, thank you.
Well, panelists, Kathy's thrown 2 curveballs already, so if you're up next, she is a big Cubs fan. She's got a mean slider and a mean changeup, so be ready. All right, our next sponsor break, is Mid-American Energy, who of course provides the energy we all need to power all the projects that we have here in the region. Here to tell us more today is Catherine Kunert. She's the Vice President of Economic Connections and Integration at Mid-American Energy. Please welcome Catherine.
Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks to the Business Record and Susanna and everybody here for coming today. Obviously, what our region is able to deliver is exceptional, and it does put us on the map. And at Mid-American Energy Company, as your utility partner, we hope that we help with the sustainability of keeping us on the map and growing what is on the map here in our respective region. We know at Mid-American Energy, as your utility partner, that we have a very significant role to play. In fact, our vision is to be the best utility provider with providing sustainable solutions. And so we think about, though, that we also have to deliver on that competitive and economic advantage, because we know that utilities are one of the number 1, 2, or 3 decision-making factors on the success of a business and where it locates, where it grows, and that obviously affects all of our commercial developments, all of our communities, et cetera. And so we think about what Mid-American has to deliver in order to bring that competitive economic advantage to the table. And that starts typically with rates, affordability. Everybody wants to know it's affordable because you have to have electric and natural gas. And so we're proud to have the 8th lowest rate still in the country when compared to about 150 other utility providers across the country. And then you think about the reliability. It's the number one thing. You mentioned storms. That's just a simple piece about reliability and be able to make sure that we're there when you need us all the time. And so reliability and affordability are part of that two-legged stool that we stay so focused on. But now we talk about sustainability. And the great thing about Mid-American that truly creates that economic and competitive edge is the fact about our renewable generation. And what we deliver to you by being our customer is right now 88.5% of your generation that you use is coming from renewable energy on an annual basis. And that's going to be, once we get our approval at the Iowa Utility Board this year, either 92 or 100%. That you get to claim as our customer at no additional cost. So that's delivering that three-legged stool, that's delivering that competitive economic advantage, and that is how we say we love to be and deliver on your partner for the rest, hopefully, and into the future for all of your successful business adventures. And most importantly, thank you for being our customer.
Thank you to Catherine and Mid-American for continuing to sponsor this event. Kathy, back to you.
So Adam, you're up. In the past week or so, JLL and CBRE have released Des Moines' first quarter reports for industrial. As most of you all know, several projects have been completed at the end of the fourth quarter and the start of the first quarter, which has put a lot of speculative space on the market, but it's also pushed the vacancy rate up over 4% in the industrial sector. Last quarter, it was about 2.5%. So what's the outlook for getting all that space leased, and at least to 2023?
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful you can come up with a curveball that is industrial real estate and the Cubs, so we'll see. But no, we worked on an article, Kathy, that you put out at the beginning of the year, and it really predicted a more normalized industrial market, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Companies during the pandemic had to adjust and optimize their warehousing and logistics strategy because of what consumers were changing their buying habits. And we knew at some point they were going to get that figured out. They were going to get to a level that made sense for them on a long term, and that we would begin to see that demand return to more normal levels. 4.8% is still a fantastic industrial market. That still is a good, healthy industrial market. And we may see that vacancy rate creep up just a little bit as we see more product come online. But I don't think it's not going to get to a dangerous level or a concerning level. We still see really strong industrial demand out there, but it's returned to a more normalized level. It's a lot of 40 to 75,000 square foot tenants, some new to market, some growth within the market, and that's what we would traditionally see in this marketplace. So I think we'll just continue to watch that, and I think you'll also see development return to more normal levels to new product getting delivered.
So when you talk about development returning to normal levels, what's that mean?
It's a good question. I thinking through kind of what we would see for normal. I think we've seen in this market 1 million square feet get delivered and very successfully leased up. The last couple of years we've seen double, triple that. So I think we'll just see a return to more of those buildings. Although there's some exciting developments happening in the industrial space. We've seen some cross docks be developed. We've seen some of those planned. And that has the potential to bring some new users to this market that wouldn't normally have thought about being here, especially with our proximity on 3580. So I think we'll continue to see that. The other market that we're really watching on an industrial front is the flex market. And we continue to see very, very strong demand for product in that market, and sometimes at the expense of not having really good supply. That's a product that's hard to bring to market at a cost, at a price point that tenants can pay right now. But those 2,000 to 6,000 square foot industrial users that need that half office, half show, or half office, half warehouse is a really, really tough product to get right now.
Talk a little bit about, and this is my curveball to you, talk a little bit about interest from outside the state, from people wanting to be here, and how that may be compared to before the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we're still seeing elevated levels of people that want to be in this market, and that's what you would expect. 15, 20 years ago, your distribution strategy probably involved 5 or 6 warehouses around the country, maybe 3 to 4 warehouses around the country, and you could service the entire country. And then once Amazon started to be able to get packages on your doorstep in 2 days, now 1 day, same day, that really changed what consumers and businesses were demanding from a delivery standpoint. So if you're going to match that, especially if you're in the B2B markets, if you're going to be able to turn inventory around and get it to customers in a day or two, now you've got to have a warehouse in every market. And so those companies that are doing business here, have customers that do business here, it's really requiring them to come to this market, add space, and add inventory. I think the other piece of it too is the supply chains have gotten better, but we're still seeing challenges in the supply chain, and you're seeing companies want to inventory more product, or they're ordering more product. When they can get it, they take it, and they're holding more of that.
So employers want to get office workers back into the cubicles. Talk a little bit about what R&R is doing to help employers get people back.
Cubicles have gotten a pretty negative connotation over probably the last 20 years. So when we talk to our customers, we always say they want them back for the culture and the collaboration, but that does involve coming back to a workstation too. What we're doing is helping our customers. You're competing with work from home, and so we're helping advise our customers on things that they can do to take some of those aspects that people really liked about work from home and bringing it into the workplace. And one of those things is an individualized workstation. When people were at home, they had a lot of them had personalized workspaces at home, whether that was their dining room table or a home office, but they had pictures of their children, they had pictures of their family or their pets. And so when bringing people back, we've seen a lot of customers really gravitate back towards an individualized workspace that someone can personalize and make their own because they really want that. Another big piece of it is the re-amenitization of office buildings. What customers are demanding today from that workspace is different than what they demanded even 4 or 5 years ago. One of the big drivers right now is coffee. People want an elevated coffee experience, whether that's walkable from their office or in their lobby. We've partnered with Starbucks and brought in some automated Starbucks cafes, and they've been really well received. In fact, some employers are paying for it so that their employees have free coffee. The other one is indoor-outdoor space. We've seen a number of customers want to bring the outdoors indoors and vice versa. We've done a number of glass garage doors in office spaces. We've done elevated outdoor patios with Wi-Fi so that people can sit out there and work. We've even looked at adding pickleball courts to some of our office parks as an added amenity. So, we're just evaluating that. And at this point, it's taking a lot of cues from the multifamily and the hospitality markets and what they're adding. Some of the things we've looked at, we haven't executed on, but are in the mix. A podcast studio. We've looked at a speakeasy in one of our buildings or a golf simulator and game room. So just trying to bring some of those elements that people liked at work from home and elevate the office experience so that people are making the choice that they want to come back to the office as opposed to employers feeling like they're dragging people back.
Great stuff. And Susanna and Connie, I hope you were taking some notes on the speakeasy. Thanks.
All right, we're going to do another sponsored break here. One of our next sponsors is Polk County Housing Trust Fund, who's been mentioned a few times already today. Polk County Housing Trust Fund, of course, provides strategic leadership and expertise to strengthen communities through affordable housing. Here to tell us a little bit more is Eric Burmeister, the Polk County Housing Trust Fund's Executive Director. That is, at least until he hangs it up in June. Please welcome Eric.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Business Record. Thanks to all of you. You have seen the Polk County Housing Trust Fund as sponsor of this particular event now for, I think, maybe our 5th year. And so you've heard a lot, and you've heard even today from some of our panelists. You can all pick up your checks at the end of the show, about things that we have done, studies that we've had, data that we've produced regarding housing, and particularly affordable housing in Polk County and central Iowa. What you're going to hear about today now is a shift really in the work of the trust fund. We've done a lot of education. Now it's time to start talking seriously about solutions. And so we've always been fortunate that this particular event has occurred during what we call our Affordable Housing Week or Affordable Housing Month. What you're going to hear today, and on your table, you'll find this, which has a QR code that you can go to a new website that is called Zone Home. So what you'll hear tomorrow at our symposium is discussions about how zoning really does affect our ability to provide housing for our community and for our workforce, and some of the strategic things that we can do in order to affect zoning policy, both in a way that's positive and sometimes in a way that is negative or change, in order to meet those needs that we currently have. And also, as I think Molly may have said, keep up with the kind of inventory that we're going to need going forward. And so I would encourage you to go to Zone Home. There you'll find a number of articles, a number of studies, a number of things that will probably challenge us as a region in order to take a look at what we need to do in order to make sure that we have the appropriate housing that is available for not only the people that are currently here, but people that we expect to come in the future. So thanks a lot for the opportunity to have this forum for a number of years. I don't know where my sometimes partner in crime went, but Chris, there she is. Chris and I maybe are the two sassy ones. I think she said sassy. I call myself prickly. But I think the fact is that we hope that as we move forward as a community, that we can make sure that all of our residents have safe, stable, and affordable housing. Again, thanks a lot to the Business Record for your work and for elevating this need. And thank you very much, and we'll hear from the rest of the panel.
Well, thanks again to the Polk County Housing Trust Fund, and I also want to spend a minute to extend a special thank you specifically to Eric for your leadership from this space. As we mentioned, of course, Eric is retiring in June after 12 years in the role and countless other years advocating in this space. So I'd like to ask, let's give Eric a special round of applause as he heads out on retirement here. It's such an important topic for the community, and his work in that space has been relentless. And you can read a little bit more about Eric and his retirement, as well as the role of the organization and some of the changes they're making, in an article that's written by Kathy that was in last Friday's issue. Kathy, we're right on time, so back to you.
Okay, so Corey, during the pandemic, Keene Project Solutions completed a project for pet parents in Ankeny. You're now working on the tower in West Des Moines. It's a mixed-use project. Talk a little bit about how the challenges have changed during the pandemic to now.
You bet. So Keene, we are an engineering and construction firm, and we like to participate in a design-build arrangement. And there's a recipe for success when you deliver projects in that way. And it's typically a predictable process when you are early up front, whether it's new construction or remodel consideration, predicting cost that tracks as you advance design, predicting schedule as you advance design, and continuing to basically monitor and manage a scope of work that fits within those boundaries. That recipe was very predictable and worked very, very well pre-pandemic. Once the pandemic hit, we initially became reactive, and it started just like all of you in terms of protecting your people, allowing them to work in safe space. We work in the Des Moines metro area, but we work all across North America. And moving project teams, whether it's engineering folks, execution, construction staff, to those projects, it was certainly a challenge to house them, feed them, and then, of course, write policies, procedures to work in that kind of environment. So after we got through the reactive and we got in control in terms of how we are going to produce and perform for our customers, we continue to build projects. And Ankeny, you might be showing the pet parents projects. We were reactive. There were a lot of curveballs, and it took our recipe and it made us work harder. There were a lot of things. Pet parents, the structural steel, we were dealing with material cost escalations everywhere. And on the structural steel, I think it was a 120 ton project. There was about a 40% change in material pricing on the structural steel package. Not only that, a lot of other firms out there building projects in the commercial sector and other sectors were grabbing fabrication time, and it was hard to find a fabrication slot. So making commitments and locking in on getting price protected was one thing, but then also achieving a fabrication slot was the next challenge. So that just led to all kinds of issues. On the Ankeny project, we got lucky, and one of the larger DC projects shifted or pushed, and we allowed to come in and grab one of those fabrication spots. So that was a success, but we still have the issue in terms of the material escalations. There were some reactive type issues. Doors, wood doors. We actually had a plan B, plan C, and a plan D, which included owner occupying their facility absent doors. we couldn't get wood doors. It was a struggle to get the rooftop units, simple unit heaters, rooftop units that have the componentry, the chip type technology. Some of these products used to be stored in a warehouse just a few miles, potentially from whatever your project site was. All that inventory is gone, and I don't know that it'll ever get back to that, right? So there were extended lead times, and there was a plan B and a plan C in terms of are we going to have rooftop units to heat and condition.
So fast forward to the tower and the challenges now.
So it's more predictive, but it's still more work. Structural steel, still there's all kinds of volatility. We are getting more predictive and less reactive. We became experts. We basically, it's pretty low tech, but it's we pull, and we have these really extensive procurement schedules that allow us to manage time and understand when these materials are being shipped. It is a big deal when we set these prices, and it's whether it's $1 million project, a $5, a 10, a 20, or $30 million project. Having that upfront cost be as predictable as it can be, I can say we're getting better at that. And these material escalations, it used to be we could escalate 0.25% a month, and 3% a year would be a good average, right? It's really volatile, and it's really hard to predict what that's going to be in today's environment. But we're getting better at it.
You had trouble finding doors during the pandemic. Is there anything right now you're having trouble getting your hands on?
To be honest with you, anything with chips or component like technology, rooftop units, I think they're 40 to 60 weeks depending on what that unit is. And that seems really crazy and terrible. What we do is when you're in a design build arrangement, and the owners take more risk, we have to make more commitments so that we can get those materials ordered, right, so that we can get them installed in a timely fashion. But that does require the owner to agree to commit to a steel package, to a mechanical package, to get those long lead equipment items en route or underway.
So Keene was an early user of virtual reality in designing and planning construction projects. And artificial intelligence, or AI's in the news a lot these days. Share a little bit about how Keene's using virtual reality and AI and looks to be doing that in the future.
Yeah, we were an early adopter. We purchased a 3D scanner just because we do a lot of renovations, meaning we're coming into existing facilities and making modifications. But it also comes into play on some of the new greenfield type sites. But initially, the old school way is send your engineers out and do a site investigation, pull tape measures, things of that nature. We short track all that. We take one trip, we get a 3D scan, and we have a digital footprint of your facility. That comes into our 3D building information modeling environment. Everything we do is in a Revit or an Autodesk 3D type design approach, which allows us to do, as we advance at a 30, 60, 9%, we will do drawing reviews, constructability reviews, clash detections, but mostly it's about sharing the information. It's sharing with that client, and a lot of times it can be done via Zoom meetings. It doesn't have to be face-to-face meetings or 2D drawings where we open up 32 by 48 sets of drawings. It's all virtual these days, and the owner can see how we advance, right? So the virtual reality, it's just table stakes for us. We are all in on that. On the AI side of it, I know that there is some negative connotations out there for AI at this point. But I have to say, on the construction side of it, when you come and meet us in our office, when you talk to our engineers and our BIM management individuals, they've got a future that is pretty impressive, in my opinion. We are using the model as we construct. And imagine for just a minute, we do daily logs every day, and we use software to track and archive the events that have taken place. Imagine if we could have a 3D scanner that every evening go through and scan work that was completed that day, and it becomes part of your daily log. And it's not just a schedule update or a narrative. There's now a virtual piece that I can communicate to client A or client B. This is what we did Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, right? And maybe there's a 5-day deliverable that next Monday of what was achieved on structure, what was achieved on your enclosure, right? So we're pretty excited about the artificial intelligence to help us understand. Maybe it's the quality control side of things. Maybe it's how we're progressing, and are we achieving what we need to do? So we feel positive about that.
Good, interesting stuff.
All right, I'd like to introduce our final sponsor today before getting to our final two speakers, Whitfield & Eddy, who is a dedicated team of attorneys with extensive experience in commercial, residential, industrial, and agricultural real estate law. Please welcome Alicia Milners, a member attorney and real estate practice group chair for Whitfield & Eddy.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. My name is Alicia Milners. I am the chair of the real estate practice group at the law firm of Whitfield & Eddy. On behalf of my colleagues here today, I want to thank you for joining us at the Business Record Commercial Real Estate Forum and for taking time to connect with fellow industry leaders. We are a full-service law firm, and our attorneys work day-to-day supporting developers, real estate, and construction and finance professionals. We are motivated by the evolution of the metro that we witness from our offices downtown in the Hub Tower, and we look forward to working with you to continue driving projects in our region. All of the growth and changes that we see throughout the greater metro area are because of your tireless pursuit of excellence. On behalf of Whitfield & Eddy, I would like to thank all of you for your continuing efforts to reimagine, redefine, and inspire our communities. Thank you.
All right, Kathy, back to you for our final two panelists.
Okay, so Michael, concerns existed for a while about the health and well-being of small-town Iowa's Main Street. Tell us some of the things that are going on in those areas.
Excellent. Well, in my role at the Economic Development Authority, I am the state coordinator for the Main Street Iowa program. Main Street is a grassroots economic development program that helps build capacity for local communities to really envision their future and take hold of that future on their own. So we act as a coach not only with the fundraising and the volunteer side of things, but also in the small development sphere. But most importantly, our team does a great deal of work in helping support small-scale developers or people who just bought a building and are improving their building, so they will never call themselves a developer, but they are in fact doing the work of development within their communities. Iowa communities are on a constant reinvention process. In my work, one of the observations that I've seen is that so many communities use the nostalgia of who they used to be as the vision for what they want to be in the future. And in my opinion, the quicker that communities can start to recognize that they will never be who they were in the 40s and the 50s and in the 60s, and the quicker that we could realize as communities that while change is hard, it is absolutely inevitable for local communities to be economically viable and vibrant into the future. The reality is that this is kind of a grieving process that we all go through as human beings, that communities go through on a community-wide reality. The reality also is that some communities can go through this grieving process, some communities cannot. But the communities that can and are really starting to re-envision the use of their places and spaces and their downtowns in new and exciting ways. And what I've started to call the post-nostalgia economy is really starting to step up in a lot of communities, recognizing that nostalgia of who they were is not who they're going to be. And so once we get past it, we could really start to see the future of who we can be. So Kathy had asked me to talk about a couple projects that really start to demonstrate that innovation and that kind of transition. And so I think eventually there will be some slides that will come up. The first one is a project in Newton. And I didn't know the magic behind the slides. They've been great pictures, though. The first project that will come up eventually is Newton. It is a 100-year-old county garage. It was used for a century as the Jasper County maintenance shop. And that maintenance shop was being vacated. The Newton Main Street program partnered with an emerging developer in Newton, transformed the space into the Viet Thai Taste restaurant. It is, if the pictures would come up, it would be spectacular, and the oohs and ahs are going to happen. Oh, there we go. Everyone, ooh, that looks great, right? So we have this century-old building that is really re-envisioning, and one of the things, the takeaways that I have from a project like this is not only how the partnerships locally started to reimagine what's possible in the future, but the second piece is that it took if many of you are aware of Newton's transitions over the years, and Newton has the reality that they have to really reinvent what downtown is, what the Maytag campus is, what their footprint of downtown is. The second project that just popped up is in downtown Nevada in Story County. This project is, as you can see on the right-hand or the left-hand side of your screen, Evie is the woman holding up the place pin. She is what everyone in this room would classify as an entrepreneur. She is an owner and or operator of 4 downtown businesses, small businesses in downtown Nevada. One of the cool things about this project is she has started to take that entrepreneurial mindset in her small business world to the property development world, which I think is one of those big transitions that has to happen as a community, that we have to start thinking entrepreneurial about the future of our community and the future of those spaces, and Evie has done a great job of that. The after that you see there, the upper floor of this building is now a co-working space called Copper Spaces. On the before picture, you could see the previous use was insulation for the first floor. So the transformation in this project was really spectacular. The third project is a project in Jefferson. I would love to do an entire day case study about the community of Jefferson. They are doing really great and really innovative things. This project is the City View project. The takeaway that I want to have really quickly is this building was on the brink of falling down. This building is a corner building that really defines 1/4 of their downtown historic square and their historic district. The city took on a partnership to purchase the building, to reinvest into the stabilization of the building to ensure that that space is still there, knowing that there's a recognition of value that had been lost. They partnered with the Jefferson Main Street program. They partnered with a local community member who had an interest in doing development but had never done development. So this project became a test case to build a process for not only the city, but also the Main Street program and local developers that has now been replicated throughout the square a number of different times. The magazine that is going to be given out, I have to take off my IEDA hat and put on my varsity cinema hat. I am also one of the leads for the development of the $5 million renovation of the varsity cinema. I personally love the cover. I couldn't see a better thing to have on the cover. When you all get the magazine, you'll know what I'm talking about. But when we look at projects like the varsity, when we look at projects like these, they're really game changers in the local space. And I could go on about Coon Rapids, about Jefferson, all kinds of
Be a little more specific on why these projects are important to do.
Yeah, so these projects force the partnerships that I talked about earlier. They're partnerships with property owners in the city, with financial institutions that should be happening on a regular basis. But I think we all know what happens when we say should. The reality is they're not happening. There's that assumption of those partnerships. These projects are forcing the issue. They're forcing partnerships that are meaningful into the future. In me personally, I think they build confidence that cannot happen without projects like this happening. You can't just elicit confidence in a community. People have to see it happen, whether you're another property owner, whether you're a city elected official, whether you're an economic development leader. This builds confidence in the future. These projects incubate new businesses, emerging developers, and they incubate new thinking, which there again, I think in many cases we need new thinking to happen to get past where we are right now. And to just to lump on to the conversation about housing and Eric's comments, these projects in many cases are introducing new housing options in local communities, some that haven't had new housing in a decade or more. So downtown upper floor housing is really strengthening the local housing ecosystem and providing workforce housing in communities to strengthen economic development efforts.
Thank you. If you haven't been to Jefferson lately, you should go and walk around the square. It has completely, I was there maybe 15 years ago, and when I went back to do a story that's in the magazine, I was just wowed. So it was great. So thank you.
I'd love to give you a tour. Excellent.
So Holly, provide us with a brief update on Norwalk Central and then sort of connect the dots on how that development is going to, you hope, will attract and retain residents and businesses.
Sure. I'm going to have to reference my notes a little bit here because there are so many components to this project that are important to touch on, and I'm not as smooth as maybe a Michael or an Adam who kept saying before we got up here, this is fun, this is going to be fun. I'm glad it's fun for you, Adam, to speak in front of 400 brilliant minds, but I might throw up. Just kidding. So, Norwalk Central. The city partnered with Diligent Development, Sportsplex USA, Heartland Sports Turf to create what is known as Norwalk Central right now. And I'll also mention Bishop Engineering and De Novo Construction Solutions because they're big players in this development. But Norwalk Central is a 140-acre mixed-use development in the center of Norwalk, so we're very creative there. It's on the east side of the Highway 28. This kind of dream project has been really planned out for the last 5 years. We held our groundbreaking and started the infrastructure construction last summer. The completed development will consist of 10 acres of multi-sports turf fields, 50,000 square feet of private sports and health-related facilities, batting cages, 50,000 square feet indoor public recreation facilities, including multi-sport courts, indoor track, game and program space, concessions, outdoor courtyard, public park and trails, amphitheater, and then 70 acres of commercial, retail, restaurants, and year-round recreation-based experiences. 2 hotels are under contract in the development. Starbucks is starting construction next week. Several commercial parcels are under contract as well, so it's moving along really rapidly. Within the city center area, we'll have a Norwalk of Fame for the celebrities and pro athletes from Norwalk, Jason Momoa being my favorite, a military and foreign partnership tribute, and then the sports campus will include some first-in-the-nation technology, which is really exciting. The private sports developers are using Norwalk as their research and development base, and they will roll out some tech that the professional sports industry doesn't even have just yet, which is really fun for us. First in Iowa Amazon stores and some celebrity partnership projects. So as Kathy asked, how will this development attract and retain residents and businesses? About 15 years ago, you might have been able to call Norwalk a bedroom community, but really right now it's about as far from that term as a city can be, being 10 minutes from an international airport, sharing borders with Des Moines and West Des Moines, public amenities, golf courses, lake, top-ranked schools, the commercial and industrial value, I'm very proud of this one, the taxable value in 5 years grew by 789%. I say that because my boss is in the room, over there, Luke Nelson. And then the population grew by 45% in less than 10 years. So now Norwalk residents, they don't want to just buy a beautiful house on the golf course and have nothing more to do unless they cross the West Des Moines or Des Moines borders. They want to be able to shop and have recreational experiences up the street. So this development specifically will really provide all of the things that they want and need in one centralized location. The sports campus piece alone is estimated to draw over 1 million new visitors per year. And once fully built out, Norwalk Central will have an estimated $300 million private investment. There is some city investment in that, but that side's just the private end. So these features will really give new businesses many reasons to locate in Norwalk. And Norwalk's never really had an issue drawing new residential developments to the community. So the city council's focus is on providing services, amenities, things people want, the residents want and need. And to do that, we're recruiting just high quality commercial and industrial developments.
So one of the things you also want to do is attract more retail development. And you've hired, Norwalk has hired a group to help sort of put together a development plan. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So about 2-3 months ago, the City Council approved us to hire a firm called Retail Strategies. And I've always been a little bit iffy on hiring firms to do these types of things. It's my job to recruit retail and commercial, but we're a really small staff in my economic development department. I have two people working with me full time. And we have this, breakneck speed of growth in Norwalk and just enormous responsibility for the community. So this firm was really acting as an extension of our staff. So they're not in competition with our brokers and our realtors. They don't get paid by commission. They're paid by the city. So they work in conjunction with these existing sites and developers in our community. So really our hope for this firm is that, they're just on a kind of a 1-year trial. They asked to go 3 years and beyond that because we all know how long it takes developments to really come to fruition. But I was given 1 year, so we're going to make the best of it. But we just really hope that it'll give us a much more broad audience. They can go to these national conventions for us that we can't make it to all over the country. And they have the partnerships with these national retailers. So we just hope that we're able to just have a much wider range of opportunity by having this extension of our staff out there. And if they're able to recruit one good restaurant or one national retailer, we will make our return on investment, within that first year. So it's a risk that was worth it to us.
Great, thanks. And do we have time for 2 or 3 more questions?
You got it, Kathy. There's a pitch clock in baseball now, so we've got.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I know. We've got about 5 to 6 minutes, so
Okay.
if you want to get some rapid-fire questions in there, it would be a good opportunity to do that.
So Matt, you referenced the Pro Iowa Soccer Stadium earlier. Give us a brief update on it, but then more importantly, talk about some of the things that are planned around it.
Right, so the city and the EPA have completed approximately $12 million of remediation work on the Dyko site, which is the proposed site for the stadium. Pro Iowa is working rapidly to complete their capital stack to break ground. There's still, the site will always be a Superfund site, so there's always going to be monitoring and reporting work to be done by the city to the EPA, and then further remediation work to be done by Pro Iowa, specific to utility locations, footing, foundation, even where you plant each tree. So there's a lot of detail. People kind of are wondering what's taking so long, but there's so much detail work behind the scenes going on to get this project right. Just as important as the stadium, maybe even more so for us and for Kraus, is the surrounding development around the stadium and near their Kraus Gateway Center on Ingersoll. There's about $500 million of development total to be done. Their award from the state of Iowa with the Iowa Reinvestment Act hinges on creating hotel, motel, and sales tax in those districts. So those are absolutely vital to getting that done.
Great, thanks. So Holly, Norwalk was one of the first communities to go through the state of Iowa's Certified Shovel-Ready Site Program, and you're getting ready to do that again. Tell us about what your plans are.
Sure. Yep, the city council and city leadership made a great decision by entering that program several years ago. Norwalk was the first city, we had the first certified site in the state of Iowa to reach capacity with 2 companies, Michael Foods and Windsor Windows. They took up the entire site. So it was a great first year out of the gate when I came to Norwalk. But they, together, their value is about, let's see here, $60 million, and both of them have expansion plans to double their footprint. They're both at about 150,000 square feet right now, so when it's all said and done, we'll have 600,000 square feet out there just in this one site. So it's very valuable, and we decided to go ahead and move forward with the second certified site, which is located just south of the existing site, so south of Delaware Street, and on the southwest side of Norwalk. We have about 141 acres going into this program. We're 3 months into the application process, and it's just a perfect location for it because it's, we have utilities directly to the site. We have a Mid-American substation across the street. We're investing heavily in a large sewer project down there that we have long-term plans to eventually lead us all the way out to I-35 to give us access to 35. So really big plans in that southwest area of Norwalk. So this certified site is, this number 2 certified site is a really big deal for us with a lot of value coming.
Great, thanks. And then Adam, last week I asked our readers to submit some questions they would ask you, and this is one of the questions. In light of the fact that interest rates are up significantly from a year ago, why is there not a corresponding increase in cap rates? Which is completely over my head, but I figured you could answer it.
I must talk to the same people because I get this question. I've gotten this question a lot as we've seen interest rates go up. I think one of the biggest things is we've just seen a lot fewer transactions this year. There's just a lot less transactions happening, so your sample size is much smaller. And we talk to a lot of institutional investors, and they're saying things that I haven't heard them say in my career, but we're going to use less debt. And so I think the biggest thing is you're just seeing as debt prices have gone up, developers, institutional buyers are using far less debt, so it's having an impact. It's not having as big an impact on those cap rates as it historically has. So I heard this even brought up at the crew luncheon from some of the bankers that they're just having buyers just use less debt. And I think there's also so much competition that's been rushed into the multifamily and industrial sectors. That's where the sales are all taking place, and that's where everybody's run. So you've had a very competitive environment for a very limited number of deals that are on the market. I haven't seen a lot of office deals come through, but I imagine as we start to see some sales happen in that asset class, we'll start to see cap rates go up in that sector. But I think a big piece of it is just the competition for deals in multifamily and industrial, and people just using less leverage.
Great, thank you.
You got time?
We got time for one more. Okay, Corey. The Inflation Reduction Act provides energy efficient incentives and incentives for reducing carbon emissions. What are some of the ways Keene's designing buildings that are they're more energy efficient than maybe they were 5 years ago?
So there are a lot of ways, and I'll be real candid. There is a lot of owners out there that want high-performing buildings. But there was a trend years and years ago having a LEED certified product or a building or a whole project perspective. I'll admit I am seeing less of that and more of these high-performing buildings. These incentives that are out there are being addressed. It's mechanical systems. We have a client in Ankeny. They have a global perspective in terms of facilities and their criteria. And cost is one thing, but it really comes down to what they value. They want a zero fossil fuel powered equipment, whether it's mechanical equipment, appliances, things of that nature, and all to be electrified, and maybe only using natural gas as a backup. They are clear-headed about having a hyper-insulated roof enclosure, roofing, vertical type conditions, selecting the correct glass, selecting light fixtures that are low power usage. And if you can achieve all these things, there are incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act. But it goes beyond just selecting mechanical parts and pieces of your project. Another client is addressing employee welfare, and you heard a little bit about that. And it's not just about them having social space and feeling good in their space while they're working. Some of our clients are moving it down to subcontractors, suppliers, customers. What am I doing in my company to provide a better welfare for our employees? Demographics. Are we close to public transportation? The VR approach, right? Utilizing the model. One of our metrics is we track how many flights we don't take because we have the ability to share information in a virtual environment. And that's one of our metrics for one of our customers. And that's a big part. There's multiple parts and pieces to how they're going to reduce their carbon input or reduce the greenhouse gas. And so there's a lot of different activity and discussions. And it's not just the commercial clients, it goes down to the partners too. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Matt, I'm going to sneak one quick one in here for you. You joked with Chris about coming up with a nice proposal to fill some office space with housing. Can you quickly talk just a little bit about what you've seen as the challenges and opportunities in that space?
Yeah, the development communities generally hit the low-hanging fruit for residential conversions. Those are the older buildings, the Des Moines building, the Fleming building, smaller floor plates, a lot of columns. They actually divide up well for office space, or excuse me, for residential, for window placement and that sort of thing. These larger footprint buildings really do not lend themselves well to that. You've seen some offices where they have to carve an atrium or a light well in to get windows into bedrooms, and that's an extremely expensive endeavor. And particularly a couple of the Wells Fargo buildings, the newer buildings, I mean, they're gorgeous Class A office buildings that aren't very old, so it's almost a shame to have to convert those. But at some point, this real estate hasn't been on the office very long, so no one's hitting the panic button yet. It is a lot of space, but it's very nice space, skywalk connected to parking. It's very leasable space, and luckily with an institutional investor that we're assuming is going to be patient and find the right user, the right buyer. But renovation is possible, but it's challenging.
Thanks, Matt, and a big thanks to Kathy for curating a great group of panelists and questions. We're at the end of our time today, but we in the community are lucky to have you, Kathy, writing for us and putting together a great group like this today as well, despite that pitch clock that I know you despise so much. And of course, to our speakers, we're also grateful for your expertise and forecasting abilities. Thank you for putting yourself out there today and for the business community. And just have a couple things for everybody here in the room before we head out today. First, we've got a couple upcoming events. On Thursday, April 27th, we've got our first Fearless Focus virtual event. The conversation is going to focus on how to address representation of women in leadership. You can sign up and learn more at fearless.com/events. And on May 18th, if you enjoyed learning a little bit about placemaking, some of the things we talked about today, we've got our second Power Breakfast of the year. We're going to be talking about placemaking in some of the major projects that are going on here in the Des Moines community. That should be right up everybody's alley here. You can register on our website as well. And of course, the conversation around commercial real estate doesn't end here today. We just started picking at some of the topics that we're going to continue to dive into all year long. On June 1st, we have the first of our Project 515 series. Project 515 is a three-part series of real estate and development-focused virtual events where Kathy helps put together panels that dive into specific segments of the industry. So we'll be talking about retail, office, and housing. The series is sponsored by our presenting sponsor, Midwest One Bank, and supporting sponsor, DLR Group. We've got one sponsorship left if anybody is interested in participating. And of course, I mentioned it early, but on your way out, you'll see our team at the back doors. They've got stacks of magazines. Please make sure to grab a copy of the annual real estate magazine. It's got a number of the topics that we talked about today that I'm sure you're going to be enjoying. You can also find the digital version of that on our website as well. Thank you again to our sponsors of today's event, including Henning Companies, Mid-American Energy, Whitfield and Eddy, the MPO, and of course, Polk County Housing Trust Fund. And of course, congratulations again to Chris Sidoris, the 2023 Iowa State University Ivy College of Business CRE Pro of the Year Award. Again, my name is Chris Koneski, and I'm the group publisher for BPC. I say it at every event, it's our job to help you do business better. And if I or our team can ever be of any help helping you do that, please feel free to reach out our way. Lastly, Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you to everybody, and have a great morning and afternoon.